I just shot out of bed and I went, oh my God, I've got it. It's all to do with light. And with that thought, my whole body flooded with light, completely inexplicably and unexpectedly as well. Everything has this spiral kind of dimension to it, which is serpentine in nature. Whether that's the spiraling of the galaxies, the spiraling of a hurricane, it's everywhere. I just see serpents and dragons as synonymous with the fabric of reality itself, which the druids of Wales and ancient Britain understood very well.
I'm standing here in Lake Atopo, and we're about to embark on our 5-day retreat here with Live in Flow. It's just beautiful here. And when you step into a space like this, you can't help but start to reconnect to yourself and remember who you truly are. If there's one thing I see when people come together, it's really craving that connection, not only to themselves, to others, to nature, to spirit. And this conversation with Mark TJ Keane today actually is about that. And he calls himself a professional wizard, which is easy to dismiss at first, but this conversation goes deep. We get into ancient wisdom and mysticism, the awakening of our energy potential, and what it really means to remember who we are and what we do with that. This conversation goes deep. Enjoy. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Guy. I'm amazed that you welcomed me here. Thank you.
Mate, of course. When you reached out, like things get lost in emails and stuff. Like you know, my life's busy. I should get a PA. I did have one, but no.
Yeah, I assumed you had one.
Yeah. We got staff and team, but with the podcasting, I still keep it very personal with what we do in our events and retreats and stuff. Anyway, but I've only ever had one Welsh person on before.
Wow, I'm honoured.
That's what I mean. And I was like, I don't care what this man does. Let's get him on, you know. But no, it was fantastic, mate. And you were saying you're from Newport now, so I was like, oh, I got to get a fellow Welshman on. This is a rare opportunity. But with all that in mind, let's kick off the show like I always do, and that is like, you could even say you're at an Aussie barbecue, right? Like if you're at your Aussie barbecue and you were with a bunch of strangers and somebody come up to you and said, oh, hey, how are you? What do you do for a living? How would you respond?
Well, I tend to just hit them with, I'm a full-time professional wizard, and see what they come back with. Because someone's got to do it. Someone's got to bring back the wizards, you know, and that's me. I think, you know, especially coming from Wales, the land of Merlin and Taliesin, you know, it is a land of wizards, and that the wizard has been relegated to fantasy, but the wizard was our yogi, the Western yogi, the alchemist, the shaman. And you know, it means, you know, someone of wisdom. So it's you know, it's never meant to be just a fantastical figure. It's someone who deals with the other dimensions of reality. So that's my focus. Sometimes I might elaborate, say I'm a dragon wizard, because the dragon is the ascended Kundalini, if you like. So it's my journey is with I used to call myself a Kundalini yogi, but now it's like I've reclaimed that, westernized it, so I might call myself a shamanic dragon wizard or something like that. You know,
well, because the dragon's obviously on the Welsh flag, right? As well. Yeah. And I've no doubt there's a lot of history and heritage as to why that is, and the slaying of the dragon, and you know, and all these different things that come on. But are you saying?
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because like in the yogi tradition, with the energy of Kundalini, they have obviously the representation of the coiled serpent, and then that energy rising. But are you saying from our heritage, the dragon is representing that Kundalini energy, that rising of it?
I feel that very strongly, that the dragon is a universal symbol, and I think the reason is because it represents the Kundalini, and I believe, and I've experienced, that dragons are actually, they're very real. They're just not present on this dimension of reality right now. So, you know, but we can still experience them. But No, I see I mean, my website is actually Sleeping Serpent, and you mentioned the coiled serpent, and that's why, because that's what that actually represents. But when the serpent gets its wings, it becomes the dragon. The winged serpent is the dragon. So I believe that is a symbol in Wales because of it's a memory of the ancient druidic wisdom, who would have worked with this dragon energy. Like the dragons are in the land, they're in our spine. You know, it's what breathes life into existence. Everything has this spiral kind of dimension to it, which is serpentine in nature. You know, whether that's the spiraling of the galaxies, the spiraling of a hurricane, it's everywhere. So I just see serpents and dragons as synonymous with the fabric of reality itself, which the Druids of Wales and ancient Britain understood very well until they were compromised by the Romans.
Love it, mate. I love it. I'm gonna have
That's my belief, and I'm sticking to it.
No, it's fantastic, mate, and bringing all this heritage in, and the Druids and the things that you speak of it feels lost, you know.
Yeah, it is lost,
right? But what I'm interested to have a discussion with you as well is how do you get to this point in this with your belief system? Because obviously I think you're going to be like the 400 episode or a bit more on the podcast on my own journey.
That's amazing.
And it's just been something I've chipped away, paid it forward, and having conversations with people like yourself and just staying curious because of my own awakening journey that continues to awaken. And we're so conditioned to be experiencing life through a stress response and through the five senses only. We just, it's like we've forgotten. We don't know how to open that bandwidth to experience our true identity ourselves. Like growing up in Newport in Wales must have been an experience. I'm guessing we're similar ages as well.
Yeah, I'm 52.
Yeah, I'm 51. There you go.
Nice.
Right. So you
what was the same?
You would have grown up in the 90s when the rave scene was kicking in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was part of that.
Yeah. So how did you end up on your awakening journey? Like what was your story?
So it all happened in 2003. I was actually living in London at the time. It's funny that you mentioned the rave scene because I was living to club. That's one of the reasons I was in London. I was going to all these super clubs like the Gallery and Turnmills, and I was into the hard dance and the hard trance and all of this sort of stuff, and you know, living for the weekend, but I was getting increasingly into the Great Pyramid of Egypt, like reading Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, Ancient Civilizations, all of these sort of things. I became very obsessed with ancient civilizations, and then in the end, I'd actually gone back to Wales, actually, funny enough, that weekend, and someone on the bus back to London asked me about a book I was reading, which is about the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. And I know I didn't really see any of this as spiritual. It's just like really interesting sort of thing. And it got my mind really working a lot because I started to talk about Egypt and all this stuff. And when I got home, I just had this fire inside of me. And I was just like, I need to know why they built that bloody pyramid. And I need to know now. And for some reason, I just knew that I could access that information. And I remember brushing my teeth with all these thoughts rushing around my head about everything that I read about it. And in the end, I just thought, oh, well, it's getting late. My girlfriend at the time was asleep in bed. I better go to bed. So I went to bed. But because my mind was so active with this intensity of thought, that I left the lights on. And this is significant that I left the light on. And I'm lying in bed and I'm staring at the light. And it's this like round Chinese paper lantern, staring at the light. And then I think, okay, I'm relaxed. I think I can sleep. So I went to switch off the light, went back to bed. 2 minutes later, I just shot out of bed and I went, oh my God, I've got it. It's all to do with light. And with that thought, my whole body flooded with light, completely inexplicably and unexpectedly as well. And I got this massive download about the pyramid, it was like, oh, of course, associated with light. The light comes down, hits the apex of the pyramid, comes all the way down into the Giza plateau, and vibrates this frequency across Egypt, balancing out upper and lower Egypt with this this frequency we call HEARTT. And then I realized, in addition to that, the pharaoh or whoever, right, would go in, lie in the ascension chamber inside the king's chamber, and he would go out of body and be able to travel to the spirit world. And somehow this is connected to being able to go to Sirius and going to Orion. And this was a download. Like, it was completely like, what? Like, the time, like, I hadn't read any of this. It was just a knowing, but it was coupled with this explosion of light, like I talked about it at the time as being my car, my light body, because I'd read so much about Egypt, like I knew about.
As in K-A, car.
Yeah, K-A, the car, light body. And that feeling, lasted for 2 weeks. Oh. Like, I didn't sleep. I was just bathing in this light all night. And it just changed my life. And the next day, I got guided to Alchemy, I got guided to Kabbalah, and I got guided to Kundalini Yoga, because in this book that I got guided to, and I literally got guided, I kid you not, this book, The Tower of Alchemy, was shining out of the bookcase in the bookshop, like in a movie. I could see a light connecting me to this book, and I opened it up, and it shone out this line. It said, Kundalini Yoga is the Eastern equivalent to alchemy in the West. And I knew in that moment that in order to really understand what was happening to me and understand the pyramid, I needed to understand alchemy. But in order to understand that, I needed to go and practice Kundalini Yoga. So that's what I did. I went along the next Saturday, Chalk Farm, this beautiful African lady called Amber, taught this Kundalini Yoga class. And everything that I was feeling already, like I was already lit up, just got amplified by about 10 times. I was off the planet in ecstasy. It was incredible. And so I never stopped practicing Kundalini Yoga, and I'm still practicing my version of it now. So that's how it all happened.
Holy shit. When you because that sounds like just a blissful adventure. It's like, oh, I laid down one night, I was pondering on this, and then all this energy, this light body just started coming on, and your perception of reality, the bandwidth was widening. You're starting to see and feel from a different vantage point. Because what I've found, and I'm still going through it now, is like there's energies that have been passed down through generation and generation, and different, like, scarcity, different things that who knows what's happened, right? But then I feel it coming out of my body, and it's like, oh my God, this is, and then having to sit with it for a day or two and let it release and move and let it percolate through. But it sounded like at the time you were just like in this bliss bubble. Did you think you were going mad or anything, or was it like, oh
no I was loving it. I just felt amazing. I mean, I still remember now that I came out of the yoga class and everything was just amazing. Like, I remember seeing there was a yoga magazine, and I just thought it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the world. I'd never seen a yoga magazine before. I didn't even know there was such a thing. And I was like, oh my God, a whole magazine just about yoga. And then I walked out of the class, and somebody went to give me like a free paper. I can't remember what some, like the Metro or something in London. And I was like, oh my God, for me? I just felt so much love that he was giving me this paper for free, like all the effort that had been put into creating this paper, and he's giving it to me for free. I almost wanted to hug him. I was just, so no, I had no concept of holding back at that point. I mean, that came later, but because, the work really started when that phase of bliss started to fade away, and I started to get really curious about what was happening and starting to integrate it, right? And that's when the lifelong journey of, as you say, really doing the work and really integrating everything that comes up to allow the energy to flow freely. That's taken me 20 years to get to this point. Like I wish I could have stayed in that state, but after, 2 weeks was pretty long though. I mean,
that's incredible.
Doing quite well.
Yeah. I had it for about
but
3 days.
It's not meant to last.
Yeah,
that's really a long time as well.
Holy shit! So you went to the Kundalini in where did you say it was? Chalk Farm, was it?
Yeah, the Chalk Farm in London.
Yeah.
The place is called Try Yoga.
And then, but you have also, there were other, did you mention the Kabbalah as well? Was that something else you mentioned in there?
Yeah, it was everything at once. I started to get really deep into, and that has not stopped. So yeah, Kabbalah, it was this book called The Tower of Alchemy by David Goddard, and it had alchemy and Kabbalah as a main component of it. So immediately, I would go back after a Kundalini yoga session, go home, and I'd be intoning all the Sephiroth in my body, like intoning and embodying the Kabbalistic tree.
The Sephiroth.
Yeah, they're like these. They're these like 10 spheres. Like there's a middle pillar, and then there are like side pillars as well. And they actually map out the universe. They're like different. It's a map to the universe, but it's like as above, so below, as within, so without. We are a microcosm of the universe. So what we find within us gives us the keys to understanding the universe as well. So that's why when we learn to embody the tree of life,
I got the image now.
We understand the secrets.
Yeah,
you would have seen. Have seen the way it looks, almost like something out of a chemistry set or something. But it's very profound, and what I like about that is that's very Western. I mean, it's the cornerstone of the Western magical revival. This Kabbalah.
So like, take us and the listeners on the journey then, because I feel some of the concepts might feel out of reach for people if they've not experienced it before, if they're just listening and curious and leaning into spirituality. And then I'm sure there's people at the other end that are, fully get it. But what were the clues that you were able to start piecing together for this to make sense? Because it sounded like you're going through your life in the physical, you living for the weekend, you go into these dance parties, and I'm assuming there's alcohol and drugs involved. I don't know, but and then all of a sudden,
quite possibly,
and then you're having this moment that's awakening you. So then, and then you're leaning in, right? So what's happening here, and what pieces are you pieced together that are now making sense to you with all of this, and why you're so passionate about getting it out there?
Yeah, at the time I had no idea what was happening. I mean, I just had the feeling of feeling very ecstatic, very blissful. And every time I would go back to the Kundalini yoga class, it would like top me up again. So it would just keep that feeling going. Maybe not to the extent that it was at that 2 weeks, but it was enough to keep it going. I had no idea what was going on. Like, we were singing these mantras, doing these exercises, and it made no sense to me logically at all. Like, I was like, but I couldn't deny the feeling. I was just following the feeling. And that's that because you can't deny it, how good I felt. If you feeling that good can't be wrong, literally. I would say, I don't know, probably took me about 2 years for the penny to drop. I did about 2 years later, I did the training. I actually did the Kundalini Dance training, weirdly enough, before the Kundalini Yoga training, because I went to Australia to do the Kundalini Dance training. And I think that was a really good bridge for me, because I was a dancer, I was just, as I say, living for the weekend. I said, somebody's got to have worked out how to activate this Kundalini and get it flowing through dance. And that's when I discovered Kundalini Dance in Australia with Leola and Tara. And so that was really based on the 7 chakras. And I think that really stuck with me as being something very simple, like the 7 chakras. There's something about the number 7 which I just got really obsessed with. If it's the number 7, I'm like, I'm down with that. I can handle that. So there was something about that dancing from the base to the sacral, to the solar, to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye, to the crown, over and over and over and over again, that really started to make me understand and integrate the journey that the Kundalini energy takes from earth to heaven and then back again. Where, you know, so it's a much clearer model, I think, than the Kabbalah, because then yeah, so it's a good place to really start, I think, with that 7,
and then start to awaken, and so the journey begins or continues. With your experiences, when that Kundalini started to awaken and you were on this journey, were you starting to have astral experiences or traveling? Because you even mentioned about how you realized the pyramids were used to travel to the stars, which I've heard other people talk about that who've had direct experiences of doing that, of laying in the king's chamber and that, and actually,
wow,
off they go.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up creating a whole system on this called Ancient Egyptian Serpent Shamanism, because it just felt, as you say, like it felt like this is something that they were definitely doing. And yeah, he's yeah, I'm absolutely sure that that is what was going on. I mean, because just by doing all this Kundalini work, a lot of it was I would, on a Monday evening, I would teach Kundalini Yoga, and then I would, in Bristol, and then I would teach Kundalini dance afterwards. And it's almost like the Kundalini Yoga did this sort of preparation, like you do all this very systematic thing with your body. But the dance was, when I started to do the dance, it was much more free and much more cosmic, actually. And we would really, in a similar way to the Kabbalistic exercises, which I was familiar with, you'd be bringing down this light from source down into your body. And that's where the Kundalini dance is always coming to. And so I would be, as a facilitator of this, holding space for other people, I'd be getting a full download because I'm really wanting other people to feel this. So I have to be a conduit for this energy. And then when I would go home, I would lie in bed and almost immediately I would pop straight out of my body, like every time. And I wasn't even, it was so seamless. I actually, a lot of the time, I didn't even know it had happened, like, because I would just see the room again. But the only difference is now I'm like floating around the room, and you know, I must be out of my body because I'm defying gravity now. So that's when I started get the the understanding that the Kundalini is directly connected to going out of body, because I wasn't even really looking for that, but it just happened spontaneously. And after a while, it just started to happen every night. And sometimes it would just happen. I would just go and sit in that chair behind me, and my astral body was would start to come out. It's like I couldn't hold it in anymore, like this. So that's how spontaneous it became. Yeah, like it's integrated a lot more now. I think I've settled in and integrated a lot more, and that's enabled me to create, with hindsight, a lot of these systems, whether that's the dragon yoga based on the Celtic chakras or the ancient serpent shamanism, which is, you know, they call that the Uraeus, the shining serpent in Egypt. In Egypt, they even had a different name for that. I don't even know. That was Kemet. And you had this thing in Egypt, which the pharaoh would raise the Jed, this kind of pillar, this famous symbol in ancient Egypt. And then I realized that was symbolic of the Kundalini, because they talk about when he would raise this Jed, it would prove that the pharaoh would have the prowess to be pharaoh, like the sexual energy, if you like. So it's quite explicit, actually, that this Kundalini was well understood in all ancient cultures, but certainly, yeah, in Wales, or ancient Britain, I should say. Wales is more like the memory of what ancient Britain used to be as a Celtic land. Yeah. And then Egypt is, for me, the most profound culture probably that ever existed. But actually, yeah, this is a good bit of a tangent, but it does seem that there was cross-pollination between ancient Britain and ancient Egypt a long time ago.
It's fascinating, like, because what I found on my journey so far is any kind of mystical or out-of-body experience I've had, it felt more intentional from my higher self or source, as opposed to me seeking it and just trying to make things happen. It's more being part of an evolution of my journey that's like, oh, this is happening right now. And then I get shown something or have these really interesting experiences where it almost then won't happen for 6 months or a year, or even like there's been these pockets of time. But when it happens, it's like, wow, okay, that was intentional. And that's fascinating. And, you know, will have me thinking about those things. Has anything like that happened for you through that experience? Were you shown anything or taken anywhere or from those out-of-body experiences?
God, there's so many things which have happened in my bed when I'm alone. When I'm alone, I mean, I call it the liminal. Yeah, the liminal, the place in between, like this world and the other world. And I mean, we'd be here all day if but the one that sticks in my mind is when I went to the Holy Isle, which was, well, it still is, off the coast of Scotland, and I was doing this Lucid Dreaming retreat with Charlie Morley. I don't know if you know Charlie at all. But he's an amazing lucid dream teacher. And so he what he would do is, like, we get up some sleep first. It's called the wake back to bed method. We were in these dorms, and then you would go down to what was called the dreaming temple, and he would guide you to sleep in a way that you would lucid dream. And there was this one time where he'd done that, when I suddenly woke up on the retreat, and I was in the dorm, and I looked around and everyone had gone, and I thought, oh my God, I can't believe that they've all gone to the dreaming temple without me. I can't believe they haven't woken me up. And then I was like, hold on a minute, they would have woken me up. And then with that thought, I suddenly was like outside the dreaming temple, let's call it, looking in, and I could see everybody lying down in the temple. And then I was like, oh my God, they're all in there. I can't believe it. They've all started without me. And I was like, hold on a minute, I should be in there. I'm like, there I am. Like that. And with that thought and that sight of seeing myself in the temple, I suddenly felt my physical body in the temple. And so I was like, oh wow, I'm lucid. And then I was like, okay, what do I do? So I was like, because I thought it was a lucid dream still at the time. Charlie says, if you haven't got a dream plan, just say to the dreaming mind, show me something important. So I was like, right. I found myself in this like medieval square for some reason. And I just shouted out at the top of my voice, show me something important. Like, and with that, this huge giant serpent just flew into the square. And I was like, whoa. And I just jumped on top of it. And then that's it. We just took off into the stars. And it was so fast that I got a bit unnerved, because I looked back and I could see the earth behind me getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I was like, is this safe? Like, I don't know if this is safe. And with that thought, I just could feel my physical body again back in the dreaming temple. I was like, oh, cool. You know, it's like, I can come back to my physical body whenever I want. And so yeah, I went off and went to this other planet, and I don't know, like, met these people, was taken up to a spiral staircase to meet this person, and who was like some sort of a chief at this place. But actually, yeah, at that point I woke up. But that was one of the so the most profound kind of, I would say that was definitely an out of body, kind of more out of body than lucid dream, and sometimes it gets a bit hard to tell, but that had a big impression on me.
But when you're experiencing that, for the listeners, like, how real did that feel when it's happening? Like, what's it feel like?
Yeah, I mean,
how do you describe it?
Yeah, it felt very real. I think that is the thing, that a lot of these experiences, they do feel very real, and sometimes they feel more real than this world. I mean, that's happened to me enough times now that you realize that this is not the only world, and in fact this is more of the this is a place we come and have an experience to grow, but the greater reality is that's not what this is. This is just a projection of our consciousness. So I didn't understand that for a long time. Like I was like, how can that feel more real? And sometimes things, they can seem, they're more vivid, like they're just, yeah. And for a long time I couldn't understand that. I was like, how can I be having visions of, like, I might just go to bed and I might just suddenly see a street scene in India, and it would just be people walking around or something, but it would be like clearer than if I was there. And I'd be like, but now I understand, it's because this is not the real world. This is the illusion. So that was one of many experiences that have felt more real than this does now. Yeah.
No, I get it, and
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's been multiple times where, I can't even put it into words. But what I find fascinating, like, I remember I mentioned it once on a podcast a while back, but I was flying past these beautiful castles on the coastline with the waves crashing up against them. And because I got taken through like a wormhole, like a tunnel, and then I popped out and I was able to glide along all these, but it's like I could hear the ocean smell, and I was seeing these buildings I'd never seen before. It's like I couldn't make it up. It's not like I read it in a book and then I was dreaming it or something like that. It was a whole new experience. So
yeah, I really wanted to touch on that, because when I heard you talk about that before, when you were talking to Darius, and what I realized was that those castles in the astral, or wherever they are, they represent the chakras. And so I discovered this poem called the Prayer de Noon by Taliesin, who often gets conflated with Merlin. And in the 5th century, he wrote down this poem in Welsh, obviously, in Cymraeg, and it talks about King Arthur, Pendragon, right, head of the dragon, going into the other world of Anun, and going to these 7 distinct places, these otherworldly spinning castles. And I thought to myself, that is the chakras. That's the chakras. They're spinning. And for a long time I couldn't understand, because you would think that they would go from the base to the crown, or from the crown to the base, but they don't. But then I came across this woman called Ellen Sentia. She wrote this tiny little book called The Celtic Chakras, and she said it's a spiral. You start here at the 3rd eye, and then you go to the base, then you go to the crown, then you go to the sacral, and then you go to the throat, solar plexus, and the heart. So then I took another look at the poem, and it goes, Kaya si, Kaya Pedrifan, Kaya Vidwit, Kaya Rigor, Kaya Galuth, Kaya Vandwi, Kaya Akren. And that's where you find the cauldron of the goddess of Ceridwen. And that later gets retold as the quest for the Holy Grail by King Arthur. And I thought, holy moly, the Holy Grail is the heart chakra. Like, it's a spiral. The 3rd eye, that's where you open up your shamanic site, the druidic site, to see where you're going, and you spiral your way into the center. It's not about trying to go up or down. It's
In.
the center, and that makes complete sense. And as I thought this was such a profound thing, and the fact that there was castles, and it ties in with, you know, the experience I had with riding the dragon. I was like, this is what was going on. That's, you know, when Daenerys is riding the dragon in Game of Thrones, and it's the 7 kingdoms. And, you know, it's like, this is memory. This is it. This is what it's all about. So I feel very passionate about this, because I feel I'm touching upon a memory, and this was our version of the chakras, because the chakras don't belong to India. The chakra, either they're real or they're not. But it's maybe it's curious that, you know, that they somehow ties in with this astral dimension as well. This is like they're real places as well as being something we embody energetically.
Yeah. No, you make an interesting point as well about the chakras. Do they belong to India or not? And I agree. It's like we either got them or we don't. Like these things are here or they're not. Like, you know, and if you look at all the different teachings, they have different interpretations or different nuances, but ultimately it's all leading back to the same place, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. Universal truth.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned as well, Wales has got the most castles in the world.
Yeah, 800.
800.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's got a lot.
And it's a very small place. Yeah, so it's the highest concentration of castles in the world, because it's a small nation and it's got 800 castles.
I know it's got more pubs than castles, though. I'll say that much as well.
And more sheep.
Yeah. But so your belief then is like in Wales as well. So those castles are representing the chakras, and the druids knew this. Is that what you're saying, or am I?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? This thing about castles goes deep. It's like, what I'm saying is that castles were, I mean, they've always been fortified, they've always been enclosed, but they were used to be something more sacred, like they, you know, more like temples, I would say. And then the castles that got built later on, during the Norman conquest and so on, you know, that's more about defense. But it's kind of, I don't know what the word is, some sort of weird synchronicity or providence that Wales, as the last bastion of the druids in Britain, you know, was in like the Isle of Mona, which we call Anglesey now. You know, that it also becomes this place where castles get put. You know, like in Carnarvon, you know, you know, if you want to have the keys to the ancient lands, you need to have a massive castle there in Carnarvon, and that's why the Prince of Wales, who's now the king, got crowned there, because that's the ancient kings of Gwynedd, and because that was the last stronghold of the druids, that whole region all the way up into the Isle of Mona, you know, where that last standoff was with the Romans, you know. And so I think it's a curious thing that we have all of these castles, and we have the dragon on the flag as breadcrumbs by the universe to say, wake up, remember. And we all go out as Welsh people, you know, flying the flag, dressing up as a dragon, and this sort of thing. And there's castles everywhere, all around, like near the stadium. But nobody making the connections. But I think, you know, it's almost, it's too obvious. It's hidden in plain sight.
It is hidden in plain sight, but we've forgotten who we are as well, haven't we? We're so desensitized to ourselves these days through Western life. It's like everything just becomes an image or a symbol, and the meaning is lost behind it for so many.
Yeah. But I think that's intentional as well, because if you look at it from a greater perspective, I don't know if you know about the cosmic cycles of the yugas.
I don't know them that well, but I've heard them come up in conversations.
Yeah, I mean, they would be called the eons here, right, or something of that nature. But certainly eons is a Western term, and we still use that term, but we wouldn't think of it as a specific cosmic cycle. But essentially, over, like, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I don't want to lose your listeners. But you have this thing called the precession of the equinoxes. Graham Hancock talks about it a lot, like the Earth's wobble, and that's one of the ways that determines a cosmic cycle. But it's like within these cycles, you have the Iron Age of the Kali Yuga, and that's the one that we're emerging out of. And it's quite debatable about whether we're still in it, or whether we're out, or we're transitioning. But I think basically we're transitioning out of the dark time. And during this dark time, that's when we go deep into materialism. We stop believing that God exists, or any of this stuff that we talk about is real. But if you think about that from a spiritual perspective, like, that is quite a thing to experience as an immortal soul, to come down to this planet and experience this great forgetting. It's something that we can't do unless we come down here. Like, you couldn't make this up. Like, people can't remember who they are. They're like, so it's, I think that is something about that experience of a profound forgetting, especially during this time of materialism and reductionism and science, and, as you say, like, just this empty, vacuous culture which has pervaded modern society. There's something about that, actually, when you actually wake up, you get more out of it, because you've got more to contrast it against and go, oh, okay. You know, because it's like Eckhart Tolle always says, you're like, a fish wouldn't know what water was. So it's almost like, it's only when you take it out of the water and put it back in again, then it goes, oh, that's what water is. So I think there's something about that. And obviously, when we finally get to the end of this journey, even if none of us have had a spiritual experience in our lives, at the end of this journey, then we get it. Then when we go back to the other side.
Do you think it's our purpose to awaken while we're here?
It's certainly my purpose. I mean, yeah, I do. With all honesty, I think the ultimate purpose of anyone is that. It's the highest purpose. It's the purpose of all purposes. I believe we all choose to come here. I believe we all have a destiny. But it wouldn't be any fun if we remembered. So it's like there are breadcrumbs. It's that somehow keep us on track. And when we follow our intuition, you know, I do believe that all of those destinies do eventually, potentially, end up with that full realization. That is the highest goal anyway, for sure. And I think collectively, you know, we're on that journey as well. And I do believe there's something very special about this time as well, because of this transition. And one of the signs of moving from the Kali Yuga to the Dvapara Yuga, it's hard to say, is that telepathy starts to come online again. And I don't know if you've seen or heard the telepathy tapes.
I haven't heard them. I've heard one of the ladies, I think the documentary maker or whatever it might have been, talking. I've been trying to get on the podcast, actually, one of them behind it.
Oh, you should totally get her on the show. That would be amazing. Yeah, Kai Dickens. Yeah, she I mean, I don't know if anyone had any doubt that telepathy was real. Listen to that podcast, and it's just so clear. And these children with apraxia, it seems, these non-verbal children, it seems like they're all telepathic. But then when you start to listen to the telepathy tapes into the sort of next season, as we are now, you realize that, you know, we've all got these gifts, we've just forgotten. So I think the fact that that's just come online now is a sign that we are moving back towards the higher frequency, where we remember things like telepathy, and we start to leave the denser times behind. And so I think it's quite unusual generally for human beings to come down on Earth and to have this, you know, this experience that we're having, where everyone has just forgotten everything. But that's the Kali Yuga.
Yeah, fascinating. And when you look back on your last 20 years of this awakening journey, as you say, what do you see, like I'm trying to frame the question right, because there's a couple of things that are coming to me. One is that people dive into this when they're normally in so much pain, they just want to get away from their pain. So it's like, I'm going to escape this and grab this over here so I don't have to deal with this behind me anymore. And then because I'm hearing people having these amazing experiences of awakening. So even whether consciously or unconsciously, the behaviors are matching that kind of belief system, I feel, from what I've witnessed a lot. You know, it's like running away from the things as opposed to getting a sense of presence of being and allowing ourselves to blossom in our own natural way.
You mean people in general?
People in general.
Running from their pain?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
You know, like, so like, what have you learned over these last 20 years with that kind of, that sense? And what are the gifts that it's given you because you're so passionate about what you do today, you know?
Yeah, I'm so passionate about the Kundalini, and I'm so glad that you've activated yours. There's so much fear around it, and suspicion, which you would expect because it's the life force, and so the ego fears life, and it fears change, and the Kundalini is what brings the change. It cleanses everything in its path. It's just, in alchemy we call it the secret fire, right? It's in the Lord of the Rings, like the Gandalf has a standoff with the Balrog and says, "You shall not pass," but he actually says, "I am a servant of the secret fire." So it's like, it's even the key was in there in Lord of the Rings, that this secret fire is the Kundalini Shakti, and it's just like, it is our destiny to awaken this energy, and when it awakens, it will just want to burn through everything in its path. The problem with that is that if you've got a lot of things lurking in the depths in your unconscious, which the body holds, right? The body and the unconscious mind are essentially the same thing. Then you're going to have to face all of these things one way or the other. And most people, I would say our whole culture is profoundly orientated away from moving away from facing that uncomfortable truth, whatever that is. So it's like, we all get traumatized to varying degrees, like in terms of, there are things that have happened to us that we would have preferred not to have happened. And we often don't have the tools to process that as a young child, so we don't integrate it. But this accumulates over time and becomes such an uncomfortable pain that it drives us to find distractions, whether that's alcohol, whether that's going to the movies every night. It can be anything. It could be sex, but it does feel our whole culture is based around entertainment and distraction away from, like, don't look inside. But when you awaken the Kundalini, that doesn't become a choice anymore, as you probably know. Like, you have it just forces you to be okay with everything, and realize that everything happens for a reason, and we're not being punished. And it's a hard thing to admit, but when you realize that everything is for our highest good, and we choose it all, like we choose our parents, we choose where we're born, we choose the parameters of our entire life, then it's like, we have to come to terms with, well, why exactly did I choose to have these difficult experiences? Why are there difficult things happening in the world? It's all to give us a particular experience. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing bad. It's just all a journey. And like I said before, like, there's something about the bad experiences, quote unquote, that give us an ability to really appreciate the truth, which is completely transcendent of all of that. So hopefully that'll answer your question.
It was a strange, it wasn't a distinct, very clear question. I was trying to find my way through it as I was asking you. So you did great, mate. That's how my brain goes sometimes. But are you finding more and more people are coming to experience your work? Like, what have you noticed over the time that you've been teaching and holding space for other people?
Yeah, I think we are on track. It's hard to know, because I immediately started to attract people who were into all of this stuff. I mean, in this area of the world, in Bristol and Glastonbury, there are just so many like-minded people. Perhaps like I have a slightly skewed idea that of reality, because there's so many like quote unquote hippies and alternative people around here and spiritual seekers. And but not only that, there's so many people that have been on the journey so long that you know, there's a lot of wisdom in the area as well. So but I guess that's not necessarily everywhere, like we alluded to already. Having said all that, I think the internet and podcasts like yours, Guy, for sure, I think are really doing the world a great service in helping us to connect and realize that this is a global movement. There is an awakening happening. There are a lot of us. A lot of us are doing the work, and that is for sure rippling out into the collective, because we are all connected. And I do sense that if you don't pay attention to the distractions, which are unprecedented, like at the moment, I think that the ability to be distracted has never been greater, but then it's like the ability to actually find the truth has never been greater. It's just like, which one do you choose to put your attention onto? And it's hard because the world, everyone's saying, nah, this thing that's happening, I can't believe, you know, a certain US president's doing whatever. And it's like, that is not real. Ultimately, it's nothing to do with your life. Like, wake up. Like, what are you avoiding? Like, what are you projecting onto whoever it is? Like, and it's yeah, I think in each and every moment we have the choice where to put our attention, you know, and I think more and more of us are getting that now. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm always going to believe that we're going to make it, you know, that humanity is incredible. And like that telepathy tapes and this podcast and the fact that we're able to have this conversation as two Welsh people,
it's great, isn't it?
It's a very good sign that we're on track.
No, I'm forever the optimist as well, mate. I really am. And you know, like I was just saying, speaking to someone, like we just finished our 31st retreat a couple of weeks ago, right?
Wow, that's incredible.
31 retreats, 5-day retreats we've held. I've lost count of how many introductory one-day events we've done. And I get to see, especially in those 5-day containers, you get to see people, the best version of humanity, come together, complete strangers, and actually light bulbs go on and really start to get it and integrate this work. And you think, oh my God, if we were taught this from the get-go and started introducing back, you know, our spiritual heritage and the connection without the beliefs and the dogma and the structures and the agendas that go behind so many things, like the world would just transform overnight.
It certainly would.
It'd be a different place. Yeah.
You know, I think that is happening. I mean, I believe that.
Yeah. Question I wanted to ask you as well was along that. There's two. Are we doing for time? Oh, we got about 10 minutes. We're all right, mate. There's one thing I wanted to touch in was the jungles of Panama, mate, that you were in.
Oh yeah, the jungles of Panama. Yeah.
So were you there for a while?
That. I was there during the pandemic. I mean, it was just the best place to be. I mean, it was just a crazy thing. Like I still had a part-time job at the time. I was working for the Environment Agency that, if people don't know, in the UK is the largest organization that looks after the environment. But I'd had enough and I wanted to take a holiday. And I wanted to become a full-time professional wizard. So I'd already decided that. Not just part-time, but full-time. You know. Enough of this job nonsense, for God's sake. You know. So I thought, I'm going to take a month. I'm going to go Costa Rica. I'm going to do Envision, which I did. And then I'm going to go to Panama and do Tribal Gathering, which I did, which is this amazing festival, which I think is named after, there was something in the rave scene, I remember in the UK, it used to be called Tribal Gathering. But this is actual tribes gathering from all around the world, sharing their wisdom, and then it ends up being a big like psytrance party on the beach. So it's just like I was like, I have to go to this. But that's when the pandemic hit. So it's just like, while I'm at this incredible life-changing festival, and I already decided, I was like, I can't go back to my life. But the weird thing is, I forgot the main thing. I had this intuition when I booked that holiday. It was like, wouldn't it be weird if I never have to go back? Never have to go back to that job. And it was only a month holiday. And I went, obviously, into that festival. And then we heard these rumors about something happening outside. There was signs suddenly appearing saying, wash your hands. And we were like, well, that's very patronizing. And then, of course, when we left the festival, then it was just like you had the Ministry of Health there with their temperature guns and their full-on outfits with a mask and everything. You had the militarized police with these huge guns, like getting us all in line. And we had to all surrender our passports. And if we hadn't been in the country long enough, we had to go back in the festival. And a lot of people became famous for going back into the festival and having to stay on the site for months. But I was lucky enough that I'd been in the country long enough to leave the site. So about 30 of us all found out about this place in the jungles of Panama called Caluyala. And it was like an eco community deep in the jungle that was there to teach people about permaculture and food forestry normally, right? But they all kind of left because of the pandemic. They all like kind of went back to America, mostly in Canada and places like this. And so you just had the skeleton staff and that 30 of us from this festival, you know, which was just, I mean, the sort of person that goes to this festival is already really, really interesting. But the sort of person that says, the hell with this pandemic, let's go and live in the jungle, exceptional sort of a person, you know, myself included. No. And yeah, it was just extraordinary because for, I think, 5 months, we got to live as a tribe in the jungle. The idea of, we were all from different countries, different ages, different backgrounds, but we were there. We were present and we were the tribe. And I can't even explain what happened. I mean, there were, yeah, we would have a big fire every night. I was doing my Kundalini Yoga in the morning, be doing Kundalini dances like in the evening. There were like fireflies at night and the sheet lightning. And I mean, I was swimming in the river. I was climbing the mountain. I started making courses from the jungle. Like I was like, there was a terrible internet. Like they built a tower. Jimmy, who owns the place, had built a tower that connected to another tower somewhere else in the jungle that he had built, that then connected to the mainframe. And so it was only good enough to like record one video on my iPhone and like upload it. But then at the end of every month, I'd have a course. So that's how I sort of became sort of full-time with the online course business. And it was just the most life-changing thing. I ended up self-initiating myself into a vision quest. And I made a course on this as well, where I went up the mountain for 4 days, and no food, just water. And I just, what we were talking about earlier, I had to really face my pain, because even though we were having this extraordinary experience, it's like, that was the time I think we were all having to face ourselves. And I had to face myself in this really unique way on top of a mountain. And at the end of it, I literally felt like I was temporarily enlightened. Like I came down from that mountain a different person. I had taken full control out of my mind. I had obliterated negative programming, and I remember the place was called Honey Creeper. I turned to the place in the jungle where I'd been for 4 days, and I said, "Thank you, Honey Creeper." And I kid you not, in that moment, heavens opened, like, and it just started raining like crazy. And it was like, it was the jungle had answered. And this, you know, so it was just incredible thing. So I was more like sliding back down the mountain in like a river that started to flow all the way down, part of the cleansing. So, it's something that I wish everybody would explain, to really live in the wild as a tribe in the jungle. You know, there was no walls, no doors, just the jungle and like some roofs to keep the rain off our head. Wow. That was it.
And I'm guessing as well, because of the pandemic going on, I mean, the amount of stuff that was getting touted around what was happening in the planet and energetically, you're probably you have to surrender. It's like you could be here for years, you know, you could be there for days, weeks, months, years, you don't know, right? I'm guessing when you're in it.
That was the interesting thing about it. Like I observed, because I'm always someone who's been quite suspicious of my phone. You know, I'm always like, I want to keep that like a little bit of a distance. But I observed that everybody was like with their phones and, you know, obviously for good reason, talking to their loved ones back in the country, is probably saying, "No, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know when I'm coming home." You know, all the planes were cancelled, the airport was closed. Obviously, that's why we were there. Although some people tried to get home, I never really tried that hard to get home. But I did observe that after about 2 weeks, we actually did this ceremony. Like we actually all took acid. I shall confess. And after that first time of taking that ceremoniously and going into the jungle, that's when we just dissolved into this tribe. I've never felt anything like it. It's like we were just one body. And when people did start to leave about 5 months later, it was like I was losing an arm when someone would like go back to Germany or whatever. It was the weirdest feeling. Like I can't. Yeah, it's very hard to explain. I never felt that before or since. But it was after that day that we became really present, and we stopped paying attention to the news. I actually didn't really know about a lot of it. Like I didn't really know that people were wearing masks. We put out this image on the internet of us all wearing like a leaf across our face, and we were told that that was to kind of mimic the masks that people were wearing, but I'd never seen that with my eyes. You know, we have a completely different journey. But yeah, I know about it all now.
Of course, yeah.
But I just feel like I had a different initiation. Like it was more of I'd done enough work in the past to get me to have this different upgrade. It definitely was an upgrade.
Incredible. And how did you find it settling back in, coming home after that?
Very difficult, actually. Yeah, I found it so difficult coming back to the UK that I went back. I went to Costa Rica, spent 2 months there, and then I went back to Panama, and I literally held a 40-day retreat in the jungle to initiate people with what I had been through, which was a whole thing which we'd all been through. So it's like I tried to replicate it to the best of my ability with my friend Roxy from Germany. We just had a few people come out from Europe, from places in Europe, and a lot of these people never went back. Like they're still out there now. Like,
oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really had an impact.
Clearly.
Whoops.
Clearly. Wow.
So and then we went to Ecuador and did the same thing there. So I spent a whole year basically in Central South America before I returned back to the UK. And I have to say, yeah, I do miss the jungle, but I also feel that I'm meant to be here. Like there's something about, you know, I'm holding the energies for this ancient wisdom to bring that back, and people need to remember. So I do need to be here, you know, as well. So.
Help people remember. Yeah. So you're full time now doing what you're doing?
I am, yeah, full time.
Well done.
Yeah, full time professional wizard. Yeah. Someone has to be, I always say.
Yeah, no, I love it, mate. Love it. No, it's a big deal. I mean, I've had to traverse letting go of different jobs and different things through my journey to be what I'm doing now. People don't see that. They just see what you do, right? Like they don't know the steps you take to get into these positions and the courage it takes to, you know, to follow your heart and, you know, be a space holder for someone else and help other people along the way. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It is the hard path. You know, I think I had to go through an awful lot of weird feelings around why do I feel compelled to be the weird one, you know, like why do I always have to like dress up as the, you know, as the wizard and do all this weird cosmic stuff? But it's like I have to, like I haven't got a choice. I am compelled. This is my destiny. So it's just like, but I have to deal with a lot of weird feelings of like, you know, clearing through like layers of like shame and stuff like that. Like, you know, like the parents, you know, my dad just wanted me to be a lawyer or an accountant, you know, and I said, well, I'm going to be a wizard. I hope that's okay. You know, but then, you know, they come round to it now, so it's all good.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love it, mate. It's fantastic, mate. Mate, Where can people find out more about your work? Where can we send them? I'll make sure the links are in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. So my website, Sleeping Serpent, like as we talked about, that's the coiled Kundalini in its potential form at the base of the spine. So that's why. But then all my courses are hosted by Thinkific. So the URL is actually sleepingserpent.thinkific.com, but you don't need to remember that because you can get to it from the site. But that's why I've created my mystery school, which I call Mark's Magical Mystery School. And that's where I have all of my courses on there, like literally everything we've been talking about, almost 40 courses on there. But you can just buy one course, or you can buy a bundle. The best thing to do is actually just get a membership. They just pay monthly and have access to absolutely everything. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Mark, legend. Anything else you want to add, mate, before we wrap up the podcast? We've covered a lot of ground.
No, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Absolutely. Yeah, delighted that you invited me to be here. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I've loved it, mate. It's wonderful to connect. Mark, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers. Thanks.